By now, you've probably heard my magic wand story. It's a brand that's been part of my personal journey for more than 20 years. But no matter how many times I sing Magic Wand's praises, I'll never be able to fully capture the story of this incredible brand. Well, now journalist and author Kate Sloan just completed a limited audio series documenting the history and impact that Magic Wand has created over the last 56 years. It's called Making Magic. And the series chronicles Magic Wand's incredible brand story through interviews with nearly 40 experts, performers, business owners, educators, and fans. So I got a sneak preview of this series, and what I loved is that Kate weaves together snippets from all their interviews into this amazing story arc. She covers Magic Wand's journey from appliance store massager to its legendary influence on culture and sexual independence, and it's all just fascinating. The first episodes of Making Magic are available now at makingmagicseries.com or on all popular podcast platforms. Just search for Making Magic or visit makingmagicseries.com today. Thanks for listening to Sex with Emily. On today's show, I'm talking about fantasies, the most common ones we all have and what makes them so hot. Plus, I'm taking your calls. Topics include, you love your partner, but are dangerously close to crossing the infidelity line. How do you pull back? You think your husband has the Madonna whore complex, but it's actually a lot deeper than that. And underwear, opening up about your love for wearing thongs when your wife buys you boxers. All this and more. Thanks for listening.
Into his eyes. They're the eyes of a man obsessed by sex. Eyes that mock our sacred institutions. Bedroom eyes, they call them in a bygone day.
Hey, Emily, you got a boyfriend? Because my man E here, he just got his heart broken. He thinks you're kind of cute.
A girl's got to have her standards. Oh, my.
Do women know about shrinkage?
Isn't it common knowledge?
What do you mean, like laundry? It shrinks?
Can we not talk about sex so much?
Are you kidding me?
Oh my God, it feels so good.
Being bad feels pretty good. But you know, Emily's not the kind of girl you just play with.
You're listening to Sex with Emily. We're talking about sex, relationships, and everything in between. For more information, check us out everywhere you listen to podcasts. We love when you subscribe to the podcast. That makes our life and your life a lot easier. Got a lot of great posts on the website, sexwithemily.com. And you can also listen to me on SiriusXM Radio 5 days a week on Stars Channel 109. I'm there Monday through Friday, 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific. And if you want to get a free trial, go to sexwithemily.com/SXM, or you can just call in 5 days a week. I'm there, 888-947-8277. Also find us across the board, all social media at Sex with Emily. You'll be happy you did. Enjoy the show. I've been thinking a lot about fantasies and how they play into our sex life, because I think just the concept of having sexual fantasies is complicated and confusing, because so first I want to say this, that having sexual fantasies is actually a big part of having a healthy sex life. And a lot of what happens is we'll have a fantasy and we feel guilty about it, or we feel shame and we think that it's actually wrong to have fantasies. But there's actually two types of fantasies. There's the fantasies that you actually want to happen with a partner one day, and the ones that you just like to keep to yourself. Go crazy in your mind. They make you feel good. Those are the two different kinds. All important though. And I think the confusing thing is that people think there's some kind of dysfunction to it, and that we shouldn't actually have fantasies because it takes away from our own connection to our partner. And we think it's cheating. We think that it has to be something kind of out there and wild, but maybe we think we're not so crazy enough because I'm only fantasizing about oral sex, which is actually a top fantasy for women, to fantasize about oral sex. And in fact, fantasizing about your own partner is really helpful in relationships too. Did you know that? That the more that you actually fantasize, and if you can throw your partner into it every once in a while, you'll find yourself to be more attracted to them. It'll fuel new energy into the relationship. So thinking about your partner in a more sensual way can actually, make you more attracted to them.
So before we get into these other fantasies, like if you are a person that doesn't feel like you have fantasies, how can you tap into that?
Okay, so here's the thing about fantasy though. While they're important, some of us just never fantasize. I was a non-fantasizer, non-masturbator, non-orgasmer. Like, I think I started at the base. I started where a lot of people are, and I was like, no, I think it'd be really cool to have fantasies. So I hear this a lot, and I'll get to my own story, and that I'll tell people, like, fantasy is really healthy, part of a relationship, because our mind, when I tell you that your brain is the largest sex organ, it's because our mind, what we're thinking about, keeping sex top of mind, or that's the driving force in getting us turned on, like in libido and arousal. And we're often think like something's wrong with us. We're broken because, men get turned on differently than women, and we don't know why we're not having an automatic physical response where a guy gets erection. So we need our minds sometimes to get us going there. And so, yeah, some people just naturally, like, they have had fantasies since the beginning of time. I think that Michelle said she fantasized early on. Did you fantasize early? Real quick, what was your...
I dislike porn. I've tried to watch porn multiple times and use that as a way to get off, but I've found that fantasizing about...
What do you fantasize about? That's just what I want to know now.
Okay, sorry. I fantasize about James Franco going down on me when I masturbate.
Okay. So you have a very specific...
Yeah.
Like, that's been your one for a while? Or
that's been my one for a while.
James Franco going down on you when you masturbate.
That's pretty good fantasy.
That's a pretty good... Like, I almost want to adopt that. So I thought we could talk... No, that's a good one. I think you saw it too. Here's the thing. Is that oral sex, that's top fantasy for women. Oral sex in public, sex in an unusual location. But for me, I had to realize...
No, you're fine.
Okay, she's pointing up. Oh, we're talking about the sound. Can you all hear me? I'm here. Oh, man.
I gotta if I'm looking at you, the gestures are for you. If I'm looking over here, they're for
She's pointing at the ceiling. I'm like, do we have a leak again? It's not raining. It's not raining in here. Okay, so how did I have one? So I realized when it was important, I wasn't really turned on. Sometimes I wasn't turned on until I was with a partner. I was doing all the work I talked to you about trying to get into my body and make more time for masturbation. And I started hearing about this fantasy thing. And I was like, I don't know. I guess I think about women. Like, I think about... That was always my go-to. Like lesbian fantasy. Same-sex fantasy. Yeah. Very popular. Popular. I think it's funny to think about a popular fantasy. Just saying that, like, I do it too. Lesbian sex. This is popular for women who even identify as straight. So that was my thing. But then I realized the more I looked at what my core erotic theme was, which is a concept we haven't talked much about on the show, but this is how you find your fantasy. If you have something like a kernel in you that's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I guess that's something that I think about. Perhaps it's one hot kiss you had with a partner. It could be the best sex you ever had. Maybe you are on a beach somewhere and someone like with a lover and the wind was blowing and the sun was going down. I've had a few of those. And I go back to those times and places where I can kind of get into the moment, the senses of what I was feeling. So if you don't have a fantasy, go back to things that, even if just one thing, or you really like kissing, and then you can start to create your own story around and build from there. So then when you're like trying, masturbating or thinking about sex, or even if you're not masturbating, but you feel like lately your libido and your drive has been a little lackluster. You can start to think about, when have I been turned on? And so, but then some people just think about James Franco and they've got it going. So these are just some ways to kind of fuel that. Call us with anything, your fantasies. I would love to know that. And any of your sex questions, 888-947-8277. What about you, Jamie? Do you fantasize?
I only recently started fantasizing, maybe like a year ago. When I started watching more porn, it helped kind of get me thinking about things that I like, because most of the time when I would masturbate, I really just thought about how awesome orgasm feels, and that's what I would do. I would just like muscle memory it, like that's what I'm getting to, and that's what would...
Every time since you were masturbating? Since your beginning of masturbation?
Since my masturbatory beginnings, yes. And then I started fantasizing, and now it's more of kind of a twist on previous sexual encounters that I've had. And then a lot of times too, it's just like a faceless male, really hot body with a cute man butt. Just
for women, a lot of our fantasies are kind of faceless, nameless.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
It could be
in the
James
studies.
Franco sometimes. Who
knows? It doesn't matter. But I think, so then and on the show, we've talked about it. And so, but here's the thing about fantasy too, is that as long as you don't, I feel like there are problems with porn, for example, when you watch porn too much. For men, for example, we talk about this. It happens with men more than women, where it's harder to have sex when you only require porn to get off. But these are some scenarios. And also same thing can happen for women. I guess I'm thinking about connection in body and breath, that it's, when I say your mind can also be the thing that gets you to start thinking about sex or thinking about a fantasy, or just because there is a certain disassociation that can happen with fantasies with a partner. I'm not going to go there now. I'm going to talk to you about the most popular fantasies here that women have. Oral sex is the one that I want to start with, because this is a top fantasy, and you might think that you don't have any fantasies, and you've probably thought about receiving oral sex. So if you feel that there's a dearth of fantasies in your brain right now, plant that one and think about it. How does it feel when you receive oral sex from your partner or from anybody? And it's also submissive. I think the reason why I know men fantasize about oral too, this isn't just women, because where you don't have to do it, you're lying back. You can be the pillow princess.
I love
Jamie
that.
likes.
I know.
And it makes you feel like a pampered, like you're like the queen on our throne, and we're just being ravaged, and someone's cherishing me and can't wait to like please me. And a lot of us find oral sex really hot.
Yeah, I'm not surprised this is the top fantasy. I don't think I've ever had a fantasy where oral sex was not involved in some way, shape, or form.
I have to pretty much agree with you. This is interesting. The three of us. Okay, so do I need to really encourage people more to enjoy oral?
Well, just if you haven't, try it. Give it a spin.
Give it a try. See what you like. Sex in an unusual location.
Ooh.
This is a big one, and let me tell you why. The reason why we fantasize about sex in a place, like even if it's in a hotel room, a sex club, on the kitchen counter, somewhere out of the ordinary, it's because we are all craving variety. We're all craving something to stimulate our thoughts, to turn us on. That's not the same old, same old. And so when we think of an unusual occasion with someone, it's just, that's already exciting. That's why hotel sex is so great. So I suppose fantasizing about hotel sex does the same thing.
Ooh, infidelity.
So you can be really happy with your partner. You can be in love with your partner and find something really exciting about just the idea of cheating on them.
Ooh.
Maybe it's dangerous. You think you're going to get caught. Maybe you think about having that new sex connection. But keep in mind that if you want, it doesn't mean you necessarily want to have it. But if you do fantasize about having sex with someone else and you are married, healthy, we're not going to judge you for that.
So
would you say actually doing it?
Would you say that this is a fantasy you keep to yourself?
Yes. Unless this is how you, I thought this might lead to the how do you have the conversation about fantasies with your partner question. So you guys can call us with anything at all. 888-947-8277. Is that this made me think about the infidelity. Like we hear a lot of men who are into something called cuckolding, for example, watching their partner have sex with someone else. And for some women, they might have those fantasies too. Like they might think, I want to swap, or maybe I would someday like to be with someone. So it's really a matter of, I can't tell you whether or not you should, which fantasies you should share and which one you shouldn't, because it's a case-by-case basis. What's your communication like in your current relationship with your partner? Have you ever talked about fantasies? So the fantasy conversation starts with just like, hey, let's talk about some fantasies that you have. Or do you ever fantasize? Tell me what they are. Obviously, you're not going to lead with, I fantasize about cheating on you.
That's true.
I think we know common sense. But maybe you could say, oh, I have fantasized about, us being somewhere having sex with other people. I don't think you leave with that either. You fantasize about.
Maybe a threesome.
A threesome is a really great place to start. I think it's really common. I think you say you don't want to do it without them, but you thought it would be hot to see your partner hook up with someone else. That's how that conversation goes down. You don't say it to your girlfriend and say, I'm really looking forward to have a fantasy without anything. A threesome. I'd love to have a threesome with you, and not follow it with like, because I think it'd be hot and I want to see what you think of it. You can't force it on them, and then they're automatically going to assume that maybe you just want to be with their best friend.
Oh.
Being dominated, top fantasy.
Definitely.
I mean, you guys, really, not just because of 50 Shades. There's a lot of fantasy scenarios. Like, you can just picture your partner, like, holding you down, like, you know, with their wrists or bondage, or, you know, using some, like, bondage gear. Pain, a little bit of spanking. It's also being submissive, kind of relinquishing control, although the submissive has the power in the dominant submissive relationship. But you might also fantasize about dominating someone else. You might want to be the one in control. I just think fantasies are cool. Like, I think when we hear from women all the time who are, you know, not getting turned on and not aroused, or libidos, just start thinking. When I say think sexy thoughts, keep your pilot light lit. This is part of it. Sex with a celebrity. I don't have that. You don't, James, do you?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes. Charlie Hunnam, we've been over this.
Oh, right.
I'm like, that's like the only actual face I fantasize about.
Every time. It hasn't changed. Do you ever have a fantasy that you used to have, but you retired it? No, you just started.
No, because I just started, so I haven't cycled through. I don't think I've ever. I don't really go back to the same fantasies. They're usually different scenarios in certain ways. There might be similarities, but I kind of add a new twist.
Right. Nice. Storytelling, you guys. Fantasy is storytelling. It really is. And since we like plots and themes, especially like in female porn, women-friendly porn, it makes sense that you're like telling a story to yourself. Our fantasies and women's fantasies are a little more elaborate sometimes, because think about it. It's much like sex. We don't just want to, like, I think for men, I hear their fantasies are kind of a mashup. They're like, think of this girl in the spank bank, if you will. It's like this, and they ejaculate. But for women, just like we like foreplay, anticipation, teasing, and build up, we are telling ourselves the stories in our mind that's leading us towards fantasy.
Do you ever like talk your fantasies through with yourself? I talk to myself sometimes during masturbation.
Out loud?
Yeah.
Like, give me an example.
Oh, I don't know about this. I mean, I guess like I'll just like when I'm in the situation, I will, and it helps me practice my dirty talk during. Like I just try to like talk through like, oh my God, that feels so good, or like keep going, like hit that spot. Like, you know, I say certain things to myself and then I think that does help me, at least when I am with a partner, just be able to.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Because I don't like quiet sex. It's like my worst.
Do you play music?
No, well, that's the thing. I need the person to be vocal, and I like to be vocal, and that's the worst thing for me is when I'm vocal and then the other person isn't, and then I'm just like,
I can't handle that either.
I can't.
I'm like, are you alive? Are you not? Are you participating? Like, we're doing something active. When I believe that it's let your partner know you're having a good time. It's like if someone cooks you a meal and you just sit there straight faced. You're like, did you like it? Did you not like it?
Right?
Are you not hungry? Do you got a stomach ache?
You without a word?
Yeah, without a word. It's like sex without a word or moan. You know, again, that's something that we've trained ourselves to sometimes be more quiet, but I'm all for loud, talky, chatty, dirty sex. Not chatty. I don't want to talk about the weather, but
I just everyone I've talked to about it doesn't seem to do that on their own, like when they're by themselves.
No, I've never talked to myself alone. I've talked to myself a lot.
I do
not
too,
during.
yeah.
But it's. I talk when I talk when I sleep. Apparently, I talk in my sleep.
Oh,
and I do not talk during masturbation. In fact, I talk all the time. That's the one place I'd like not to talk. But it's interesting that you do. And I think that it makes a lot of sense. Move yourself along. Practice dirty talk. Okay, sex, sensual massage. Ooh. Happy ending massages are a popular search term on porn sites, especially for women. These are women. It's the relaxation, slow, calming movements, arousal. Like it's the height of arousal. Like you're like they're taking away your stress and they're rubbing your body and they're coming at you with God knows what. I'm so excited. Booked my trip to Mexico.
Oh my God! Can we please? Your story.
I don't know if I can tell my Mexico story yet, but I am going to Mexico where I have had. It wasn't a happy ending because it wasn't during the massage.
You didn't pay for it. That's why.
I didn't pay for it. But there's nothing like a guy who can give you a really good freaking massage. That's all I got to say. And if your partner turns to you and says, what do I fantasize about? Tell them something that turns you on, that makes you feel good, that makes you feel relaxed and calm. And saying, I would love a sensual massage from you, babe, that is a big turn on. Who can argue with that? Or a foot massage. Or here's the thing I wanted to mention. Romantic sex. A lot of my fantasies are romantic.
Okay, interesting.
I know. Like, I don't want the rose petals on the bed and all that. I mean, I would take it once. But what I like, I like the connection. I like connected sex. So I like kissing and making out and like touching and staring into others' eyes. Like romantic sex. People think they have to have some kind of crazy BDSM thing. And I'm just like thinking about like I actually fantasize about deep emotional connection.
Oh, and do you think that is because you crave that? You really crave that in your regular life?
I crave that everywhere in my life. And I've realized that that's
do you feel like
kind of all that's kind of like the base. Like it's interesting because, and I think I've had deep emotional connections with people, but how do I put this? The deeper you go, like I think we all think we're deep until you go deeper.
Yeah.
And then you keep going deeping and deep. There's like a deepness between it's like peeling back the layers of the depth of the onion. And then you peeling back the layers of the onion. And of course, there's been times in my life where maybe it was less deep, but yeah, it keeps getting deeper. And then once you have it, you want more. But maybe some people, not everybody's craving deep emotional, but yes, for me. And I want that with my friends too. And I think it's harder sometimes to do in romantic relationships because we're so afraid of being hurt, being unlovable, and someone abandoning us and being alone, ultimately. But with our friends, that deep emotional attachment is becomes a little bit easier because it doesn't seem as risky as it is in romance. But I realize that that's just, you can go everywhere from there. If you have deep emotional connection and trust, then you can go friggin' dirty, crazy, whatever, if you have that basis.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with that with friends. And I think the reason why I don't none of my fantasies have ever been romantic because it's just a commitment and romanticism and all of that, like, just is not where my head is at or has ever been at. I don't think. Like, I don't think I've ever found a person to have this with, so I've never experienced it, so I can't even think about it.
That makes sense. Maybe it's now you know. Now you know it's on the menu. See, I didn't know, like years ago, I wouldn't have known that was on the menu. But now that I've like tasted it here and there in life, I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. All right, guys, we're gonna take a quick break and we come back on to your calls.
Let's talk to Jonathan, 41 in Pennsylvania, who says he's not sexually attracted to his wife anymore.
Okay. Hey, Jonathan. Tell me what's going on.
Married for 8.5 years, a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. When we got together, I can't say I was in the best place, but she's a great woman. In the sex life, like I said, it's been okay. But over the past 4 years, it's non-existent. I'm averaging sex maybe 4 times a year if I'm lucky.
Right. You have 2 young kids.
And yeah, but despite conversations about it, it just, she keeps promising and promising and saying, and it's just not going anywhere. And I have become way too comfortable with masturbation, which is something I couldn't even do and didn't even do until my late 20s. Okay. And I got married at 32. And at this point, I don't know. I'm not the type of guy. I mean, it's funny, and I'll be honest, because I'm having this conversation with you because the woman I was thinking about having an affair with, which I didn't.
Okay.
She actually suggested that I call in tonight. She's listening.
Okay.
And
she's right.
and it's just to the point now where I want to have sex. I'm a very sexual person. I used to be into swinging, and I went from like swinging and living in San Francisco swinging to now like married, kids, and like nothing. And I'm tired of masturbating.
Yeah.
And it's just to the point now where the frustration's kicked in, and I'm not attracted to my wife anymore.
Right.
And I don't want to end my marriage, but I don't know what to do.
But don't have an affair before you end your. I mean, listen. This is how I feel, Jonathan. You've got 2 young kids, and it sounds like it's gone. it's just gone on too long, and maybe you've talked to her and said like, oh, we should have sex more, and she's like, yeah, I'll work on it, but who knows, after 2 kids, her body, her hormones are all over the place, she's watching the kids. Does she have help with the kids? Like what?
Well, I'm a very active parent, so we split duties a lot. You know, it's like I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm doing all the stuff in the house. I'm not like, you know, she doesn't carry it all.
Right. Well, have you talked to her about why she thinks you guys aren't having sex when you've talked to her about it?
Yes.
What does she say?
She's tired. A lot. She's always tired.
Right. No, I'm sure she is. It's exhausting, but I guess she does it. And how was the sex at the beginning?
So.
So, like you weren't satisfied?
Like I was satisfied, but I had way better, and that's a problem in itself, probably.
Yeah. So why'd you get married?
I was into swinging. I was swinging pretty hard for a couple of years.
Yeah, and San Francisco's a good town to swing in. So listen, but Jonathan, so I mean, so you just met her and you fell in love because you were ready to have kids? Did she, you know? Here's the thing: if it wasn't there in the beginning,
I was in a very bad relationship, and she was very calming. It was a total different thing.
Gotcha.
And just in hindsight, it was like nirvana. It was like peace. It was like, this is how it's supposed to be. And then maybe at the time I just kind of overlooked the lack of sex part.
That's what we do.
And now it's like, well, shit, I missed that.
Right. So do you think if you went back one more, because here's my thing. I just don't think that cheating and affairs are a good idea. And I think the energy that you're spending right now with this woman, and it's exciting and it's going to feel great. I promise you, it's going to be amazing. And then you'll maybe talk yourself into kind of coexisting with your wife. But kids can feel that. You should stay tuned for our next segment. We're going to get into this. Should you stay married for the kids? And so I often, I try to coax people towards that in the sense of, if you think you can really make it work, have you done anything before you ended the marriage? Like, have you guys gone to therapy yet? Have you said to her, if this doesn't, like, we need to work on our sex life, because if we're not having sex, we're like roommates. Like, I love you and I want to make it work. Do you really truly think in your heart you're past that point? Like, you're past, you can't get it back because it was never there? Or what do you think, Jonathan, honestly?
I wouldn't say I'm close. I'm not there. I'm never going to give up, and because of my childhood, I'm not going to leave my children. I feel bad that I've started down that path, and I kind of got into somebody, and I do feel kind of bad about that. We haven't gotten physical.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm not judging you. I understand all of that. No, we all do that when we're not satisfied and someone else's seems great. I get it. I've been there too. I'm just saying, like, what I think the best thing to do now is to put on, to make this your full-time job, because then you'll know in 3 months. Like, if you're like, okay, babe, I love you. It hasn't been great. 4 times a year doesn't work. You'll say this I don't know if you've listened to the show, but I'm all about not having it in the bedroom, the conversation. Sex is okay in the bedroom. Not, and talking about it in a loving, what are we going to do together? Because sex is so important. It's our glue. I want you to feel sexy again. Let's go see a sex therapist. Let's go get some help. And then you go for 3 months and you go once a week and you work on it. And then 3 months from now, this woman that's having you call in, maybe you guys will have a great set. You'll know that it's not going to work with your wife, but maybe it will. But I don't think you should stay together as is for the kids just because you had a messed up childhood too. You know what I'm saying? Or your parents did it. That's not a reason to stay together. Kids can feel everything. They're like sponges. They absorb all the negative energy. They absorb mommy and daddy aren't in love. So it's really about you deciding, can I stick it out? Can I see if can I honestly be honest, stick with her for 3 more months and really go at it like it's my job, because it is, and then I'll know more in 3 months. That's what I suggest. Finding a really good therapist. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, what do you think?
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to the point definitely now where we need a therapist or something.
You do.
There has to be some type of intervention.
No, Jonathan, you're at the point, I don't always say therapy for everyone, but, at your point, I'm telling you, you're already at the point where you're like, I'm about to have affair. It's never coming back. I'm not attracted to her. So you have 2 choices here. Either you get into therapy, hardcore with her, commit, or you leave. But I don't think you can leave until you know you've done everything you can do to make it work. It's 3 more months of your life.
True. And one quick other question.
Sure.
One quick other question, if you don't mind.
Of course not.
Okay. I'm I'm very desensitized because of the amount of masturbation. I was becoming a 3-time-a-day guy.
Okay, yeah. It's a lot. All right. Oh, you're becoming desensitized. You got to stop masturbating too, cold turkey. How's that? This is a good thing for you, Jonathan. I think you got to go and talk to your wife and be honest and be like, I don't want to have to masturbate. I want to be able to, because every time that you go to masturbate, what I'd love you to do, Jonathan, is to take a moment, and it's like an impulse control thing. Like, should we have this extra cookie or should we wait a minute and breathe and go walk around the block like when you're trying not to eat? So porn's kind of the same thing, but what I'm going to ask you to do is say, this energy that's going me to switch on my computer and watch porn, can I take that and think about my wife for a minute? Can I conjure up those feelings about my wife and sex and how I used to feel about her? Can I bring that energy back into my body? Try that. Because the sensitivity, like there's a lot.
Hard.
Yeah, it is hard, but that's what you got to do. Maybe even go in and talk to her. You start giving her a foot rub or a back rub. And, because for women, we don't get turned on the same way men do. Men are like, you guys are like frying pans. We are slow cookers. We need to get turned on, aroused. So it sounds like there's a lot of underlying issues here. We got to take a break, but I think that was some good help for you, Jonathan. I think you should kind of do some of those things and work on yourself and your marriage right now before jumping in bed with someone else.
Let's talk to Jen, 42 in Pennsylvania. She says her husband has a Madonna whore complex and she needs help on how to fix it.
Hi, Jen. How you doing? Thanks for calling.
Hi, Emily. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course. So, Madonna whore, let me just explain it. Tell me if this is accurate with you, but some of you might not know. It's kind of like when they say like the guy wants a lady in the streets and a freak in the sheets, but once he gets with his wife, once he gets with you and like you're married, it's hard for him to be really sexual because he pictures you as like his wife and the mother of his children. So it's hard for him to be more sexual with you than he would like to be because he just sees you as the mother. Like that's kind of what it is defined as. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
Cool. Okay. Just for our listeners out there. And all right, so what's going on with you? Tell me the history.
Well, we've been married for 14 years, together 16 years, and he never he always had trouble ejaculating and completing inside of me, and he told me that happened in previous experiences.
Okay.
But it wasn't bad for the first couple of years after we got married. Mm-hmm. But then we started to try to have children. We had some difficulty with that. I had to go through intrauterine insemination, and I ended up having a miscarriage. Mm. And after that, it was, it's basically a chore for him, and it's, a few times a year.
Okay. Well, this isn't about Madonna whore then. Madonna whore is more like, I don't want to have sex. I want to do all these things, but now you're my wife. I can't have sex with you and revere you sexually. I can't see you as a sexual object. So this sounds to me like he's got some delay. He's got some challenges around. He has delayed ejaculation, essentially, which is a condition that, like, I think it's less common than premature ejaculation. Maybe it impacts like 3% of men, and they're not really sure what it is. It's kind of tricky, but it just means that it takes them 30 minutes or longer to ejaculate. Typically, they can't. Like, even it's a little quicker during masturbation, but not always. And so it sounds like he's turning this on you, and he's always been this way.
Yes,
and he's making you feel bad about it, that like, oh, it's because you're my wife or whatever the hell, but that's not true. He's got delayed ejaculation that's untreated and not understood. So
but he's gone to some sex therapist, not for extended therapy, but somewhere along the line, someone told him that it was the Madonna whore complex. So he blames it on.
But that's okay. So he linked on to a piece of information to serve him that isn't true. And he probably didn't tell the therapist that he never ejaculated with other women. So maybe they were trying to get to people go to therapists. This is just on a side note. People go to therapists and lie all the time, and it pisses me off. It's like, why don't you just take that $200 and just flush it down the drain? You're paying someone for help, and then you're not telling the truth. So, Jen, no, none of the sex therapists I know would say that if he said he hadn't ejaculated ever. He feels insecurity around it. He's never really copped to the fact that it's a challenge. And so that's what it is, Jen. That's why he's not having sex with you, because it is a chore for him, because he can't ejaculate. He doesn't know why. It could have started because, do you know if he masturbates?
He does.
A lot? More than...
I think more so years ago.
Okay.
But not as much recently.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know, he's 6 years older than I am. So he grew up like at the height of the AIDS epidemic. And I think that maybe wraps up in it also a fear of contracting AIDS, even though he always had protected sex.
I mean, maybe, sure, that could be it too. Maybe he was so afraid of getting someone pregnant that he trained his body never to ejaculate. All that's true. That was in the 90s, though. That was 25 years ago, maybe, that happened, right? So that was, I'm just thinking, I remember that too. That was a big thing. Like, yeah, but still now, as a 48-year-old man, then he needs kind of to disassociate his sexual activity with the fear of getting pregnant with someone he's married to. You know what I'm saying? So you're just doing all this on your own. And would he ever have real conversations with you about that? Because now you're just speculating. But I don't like him blaming you. How is everything else in the marriage?
I think it's okay. It's not great.
Well, you're not getting your needs met.
Right. And that makes the problems, the everyday problems worse.
Yeah, of course. See, this is what, who were we talking to earlier? Catherine from Canada, who was saying, why is sex important? It's like, because when it's not a problem, it's not a problem. But when it is a problem in the relationship, it's like, becomes like 75 to 80% of your problems. Because if you're not having sex, it's the umbrella to everything else, but we don't look at it. So, yeah, Jen, it sounds like if you guys want to stay together, make this work, it's going to take, I would go see a sex therapist together. Don't even mess around with another kind, because this is something like, this is a real thing. So approach him with love and let's do it together. And if we're committed to being together, let's work on our sex life.
Let's talk to Ryan, 40 in Canada. He says he has a fetish with women wearing thongs.
Ooh. Hey, Ryan. Thanks for calling.
Or wearing women's thongs, sorry.
Oh, wearing women's thongs.
Sorry.
Hang on. Sonia is a douchebag. Leave him alone.
Right? He is a douchebag. Right. Thank you, Ryan. You're 40. Yeah, you get it. You knew that. Ryan, you knew this at 36. You're 40. You wouldn't have been that guy.
Well, yeah. But, okay, so serious question for you.
Okay.
20 years old to 30 years old, I was in a very open relationship, swinging lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
That ended. I met this amazing woman. We're not swinging. She never had slung. Pretty much do the kinkiest, wildest, best sex I've ever had in my life.
Okay.
The reason I'm calling, though, so I masturbate a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I do 10,000 miles a month. I get home for 4 days. It's a great 4 days. A lot of times she'll come on road with me, but for some reason I like to wear women's thongs.
Okay. You like to wear
them. I masturbate.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I like to wear them.
Okay. Super. That's common.
I don't like guys. I don't like guys. Like, I've been in swinging relationships where we've had double penetration, close quarters. Doesn't attract me.
Right.
I told my wife found that she walked in on me with a pair of her thongs. I didn't know she was there.
Okay.
She wasn't mad. She wasn't, right? She's curious why. Doesn't turn her on. But I'm talking, we've had some really kinky sex.
Okay.
So now I'm kind of questioning myself. Why do I like to wear them?
Here's the thing. It's super, because why do you like it? Do you remember the first time this is common too, Ryan. So this isn't like such a freaky, I hear this often, and I think 888-947-8277. I know we're going to get some more calls on this. So just know that it's what you tell me, when was the first time you find that hot? You found that sexy, You thought, wearing my wife's underwear would be hot,
Oh, I would have been about, maybe just before I met my ex in the swinging life. One of the girls I had dated for a while, she liked me to wear thongs while she screwed me. I've always been outside of the box. sex has been
Right, okay.
what it's been.
Yeah, so that's what it was. She liked it. That was like a very pivotal time in your life. Maybe it was the hottest sex you had, and you were like, oh, so you got in your brain that became like connected to pleasure, and so you like to wear it. So I would say your wife isn't into it. I think that's fine. Get your own pairs, order them on Amazon, something.
Actually, I went and bought them at the
Tommy John. Go to TommyJohn.com. Forget Amazon.
I don't have a Tommy John. Oh, TommyJohn.com.
Yeah,
okay.
their underwear is actually, can I be honest, it really is like the most comfortable. Like it's their thongs. Anyway, you can wear them. You never have to take them off. Anyway, the point is get your own. Don't stress hers out. And like, now here's my thing though. If you want to, so why do you like it? Because you know exactly, you linked it up to that. Now, are you okay not wearing them in front of your wife? Is it your wife you said, right?
Yeah.
Are you comfortable not? Or would you like her to kind of come around to it somehow? Because she just doesn't get it. You know what I'm saying? It's not something that other men have showed her, so she's like, huh? Or are you okay if it just becomes your masturbation thing and you just do other things with her?
But then I'm hiding it from her, right?
Right. Well, right. Okay, so you're saying she caught you one. Yeah, so I think it's a matter of like, how long have you guys been together?
Married for 6, together for almost 9.
Okay. So I think I think it's more like you just tell her that it's something that turns you. I think it's starting with first here. What are the kind of things that turn her on? Like you said, you guys do some kinky stuff, right?
Oh. Like, okay, so we have everything from water sports to stretcher as wide as we can. 2 big dildos and myself in there.
Okay.
We do a lot of camping, totally naked, sex everywhere. It's just...
I got it. So this one thing, she might think it means that... Yeah, okay, good. So she'll be down with it. She just was like thrown off. Like she had never seen it and it was confusing to her. But if you're just like, yeah, this is this thing I've been doing. It was really hot when I was in this scene before. And that's, I want to see, what does she want to dress up as? Or like what would be... I think you just got to explain to her that it gives you pleasure and why. Like she knows, you're not... Doesn't mean that you're into men. Just explain something that you find hot and it's your turn on. And then you got to find out what turns her on. Like what? Maybe there's something she's like holding. We all have things we don't really want to say, even though you guys have done everything. Maybe let her lead this. Sounds like you've been bringing the kinky lifestyle. You kind of brought her into that world.
Yeah, I would say that.
Okay, so here's what you do, Ryan. Next time you make it about her, say, you know what? I thought, like, don't even make it about the underwear yet. Maybe you could have this in the same conversation, but say, I know I've brought a lot, but when I'm on the road this time, when I'm gone, I need you as a homework assignment to, read some erotica, buy something sexy, read porn, watch porn, find something that's hot. And then I want you to share with me your hottest fantasy in a video when we FaceTime. Text it to me. And then she's going to get excited when you're gone because you're going to give her permission to find what turns her on, right? So she's got something exciting. And then you bring in the underwear. I mean, you could even do this in the same conversation, but what I'm saying is she doesn't get it. She thinks, oh, maybe he wants to be with men or it's gay. But I understand it. You've just fetishized it, which I don't love that word because I think it's kind of fun. Like we wear lingerie, you wear your own thing during sex. So I just think it's a matter of bringing her around to it and reframing it. And tell her the truth, why it happened in your 20s. This is your wife. So I think she's going to get it then. It's that she didn't understand it. So just some great, hot, steamy conversations. Next time you see her, it'll be great. And then you'll be wearing women's underwear, buy your own pair, and it's all good. Thanks, Ryan. Keep me posted.
Thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome. That's what I'm here for. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. And thanks to my amazing team, Ken, Michelle, producer, Jamie, and Michael. Was it good for you? Email me, feedback@sexwithemily.com.